Hello and welcome to Changing World. My name is Anthony Smith, and joining me today is Soozin. Now, Adi originally graduated with a degree in Medicinal and Biological Chemistry. A few years later, she went on to do an MBA and has also studied computer science for web programming at Harvard University. After gaining experience as a marketing consultant, she now specialises in helping businesses achieve rapid growth. So, welcome to the show, Adi. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks you for having me, Anthony.
Well, that's great. I'm glad to hear it.
How are you doing?
Yeah, well, I'm fine. Now you're coming to us from down in near Miami, aren't you?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a little bit warmer down here than where you are.
I'm afraid it is. I'm over here in London, and it's a bit gloomy. We've had a lot of rain and stormy weather, unfortunately, but never mind about that. So anyway, Adi, I've got a question for you here. How did you first become interested in becoming a marketing consultant and helping businesses achieve more rapid growth?
Okay, so actually it started when I was very young because both of my parents are serial entrepreneurs.
All right.
And I basically just grew up in the startup space.
Mm-hmm.
When I was 7, we moved into a mansion that my grandfather had converted into the architectural firm that my dad and my mom ended up launching a lot of their companies out of.
All right.
So their main business was commercial architecture. And then my mother was a real estate broker, and my father launched quite a few businesses that helped to supply other needs that clients had after they had completed the development of a piece of commercial architecture. Mm-hmm. So for example, after a hospital or a car dealership was built, they would need interior designers. So then he went and found interior designers and created an interior design company. And then they needed help with this or that thing. And so that's kind of how their companies all grew.
I see. Well, that's a fairly logical process, and it sounds like it turned out pretty well.
Yeah. So it originally I thought I would go into architecture, but when it was time for me to go to college, the recession hit the development space, the real estate development space, 4 years before it hit the actual economy.
Okay.
So right when I was about to start college, the recession had hit at the industry my parents were in, and they were like, "You are not coming into this industry. You have to figure out something else." And I was like, "What?" My entire childhood leading up to this has been, "You are going to be a commercial architect." What do you mean I have to pick a new career? Like, I'm leaving for college next week. Yeah. So I went into undergrad undecided, and I kind of got to know the different professors and just taking a few gen ed courses, and I found that the people I resonated with most, they did work hard, play hard, they were health conscious, they liked studying, they liked learning new things, they were very logic based. They were all studying medicinal and biological chemistry. And so I kind of figured, engineered my undergrad degree that way. I was like, okay, this sounds like a group of people I'd love to spend the rest of my life working with. So I guess I should grab that degree and go work in that field.
Yeah.
Well, when I graduated, the recession had not exactly, it hadn't recovered yet. And so there were biochemical engineers who had 20 years of experience that were going for entry-level positions.
Oh.
So there was no way that a fresh college student could go and compete for the same position. And so I had to take the only options that were available to me, and they were in the startup space.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of, I sort of just went for the door that opened easiest, and it landed me here.
Sure. Well, I don't blame you. Because, as you say, a lot of it is dependent on the current market. The state of the employment market, and sometimes you just have to take what you can and compromise, don't you? But it sounds like it's turned out very well. Obviously you made a good move to get into that. Let me ask you something. What would you say are the main challenges facing small businesses today? I'm talking, fairly small or startup businesses. What, in your experience, have you noticed that they're having, being really challenged or having problems with?
So in today's market, with the rise of social media and search engines being at the forefront of determining where you're going to get exposure, I think there's now a two-sided problem for a lot of small businesses, because you not only have to create content and work around appeasing bots and algorithms and web crawlers, you also have to create content that the human user is going to appreciate, and those don't always align.
Now, you mention in your literature that there are 4 key factors which are important for any startup interested in a strategy for how to grow its business. Would you like to explain exactly what these factors are and how can they help?
All right, so I have 4 growth questions. Is this what you're referring to, the 4 growth questions?
Yeah.
Okay, so I have 4 growth questions that I think are really great at helping first-time founders and marketers in general to pick out which marketing strategies are going to lead to amazing growth, like hockey stick growth, and which strategies are going to leave them dead in the water with like 1 or 2% growth, if anything.
Okay.
And so the first question is, how will this marketing strategy impact the organic search engine rankings once it's launched? And then the next question is, how will this marketing strategy impact the company's organic social media reach? How will the marketing strategy impact whole funnel conversion rates and retention? And then the fourth question is, how will it impact internal company operations and procedures? Mm-hmm. And if you go across all 4 and answer all 4 of these questions, you will very quickly identify which marketing strategies are going to get you that amazing growth and which marketing strategies are going to leave you dead in the water or kill your company.
Right. So could you give us some practical examples of this? Obviously, you've had experience of working with quite a number of startups. Can you just talk us through some practical examples so that we can really understand what this is all about?
Yeah, so 3 that are easiest to visualize are PR, in-person events, and billboards. An example with PR is that a lot of first-time founders, they'll think, if I just get a coverage in the Wall Street Journal or the New York Times or TechCrunch, I'll be set. I'll have all of these people knowing about my company, everything will be great. But let's say you have a company where you don't have processes that are designed to scale. You don't have you only have an 80-person sales team. And how your business currently is set up is people have to go to your website, fill out a lead form, and get a call from one of the sales team members within 5 minutes. If that's your process, having 100,000 people go to your website tomorrow morning when you only have 80 people on your sales team, that will kill your company. That you will have a really, really hard time with handling all of that demand coming in at once.
Sure.
But let's say you have an app and it's hosted on Amazon's web servers that can scale on demand. And you have a feature in TechCrunch, and you have 100,000 people come to your website tomorrow morning.
Yep.
Tomorrow afternoon, you have 100,000 app downloads. That's amazing.
Right.
But if your app is confusing and you only have 12 people offering customer support to 100,000 users, you're very quickly going to have, and I've literally had this happen with companies I've worked with before, you're going to have a lot of very angry customers downloading your app, getting confused, getting frustrated, and deleting it.
Right.
And the hardest and most expensive person to acquire is the best friend of that angry customer that just left your platform. Because as soon as they delete the app after having a frustrating experience, they're usually going to communicate their frustration to their 10 closest friends and family, who are then going to put X over your brand, and it's going to be very difficult. And like, let's say if it's just 10 people that are putting an X over your brand, that's fine. If it's the 10 closest friends and family members of 80,000 angry customers, that just demolished your qualified market that you can go after. And that can kill a startup before it even takes off.
Well, you've made that very, very clear. That a company has to be able to handle whatever is thrown at it. I mean, if it suddenly gets out of its depth, as you say, that could almost finish it off, couldn't it? So I mean that's very interesting. What you said there, of course, about this Amazon hosting on Amazon web server, which is it sounds like a very clever way of doing things, because then, as you say, is that sort of kind of working to automatically scale to the number of people visiting?
Yeah. So there are certain servers or certain providers out there right now that offer the option for you to have scale on demand.
Right.
So you're not just taking a specific server or a specific amount of space. You're taking whatever you need. You can set it so that whatever you need, you'll pay for as you go. And it's, I guess, similar to pay as you go with phone services.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, I need 3 gigabytes this month and 15 gigabytes next month. But you only are paying for what you use.
Yeah. And so just leading on from that, I suppose it would be possible to have some kind of customer support, scalable customer support. Is that right? Is there a way of doing that?
It honestly depends on who's providing your tech stack. So, for example, a few weeks ago, I met with a woman who has a company in Colombia that's providing all of her technological needs. Okay. But their team, I think, is only 20 people.
Yeah.
And she is working with them. What it really boils down to is your budget. Because if you're able to work with a larger technological arm, if you have a larger department that's able to handle all this for you, or a larger agency that's able to take care of all this for you, I'm sure they can offer as many customer support people as you need. Although with many startups today, that's not really the case. In the beginning, they're trying to grow to survive, and they're not always, I look at it kind of like video game levels. Like they want to make a goal to get 100,000 leads in, and then pause, debug, optimize their processes, hire a few more people, and then go for the next level, get 1,000 people in. Then again, debug, look at which processes broke, take some time to error handle, fix everything, and then hire a few more people, and then go for the next 2,000. But when people think they're going to go from idea stage to 100,000 users overnight, and they don't have a few million in funding to be able to go out and hire one of these larger agencies that can offer that type of infinite customer support, that's not exactly an option for them.
No. Okay, well
does that make sense?
I think that's pretty logical in what you said. Yes. Now you mention in your literature about case studies and what we can learn from case studies. So, are there any particular case studies, or some of these big name companies who obviously started very small? I mean, Facebook started in Harvard, didn't it?
Yeah.
Or, is that right? Facebook actually started, because I saw the film of it, The Social Network.
Yeah.
And that was. Oh. Go on.
I mean, I don't know how taboo it is to say that The Social Network is about Facebook anymore, because I know for a while we were supposed to just pretend that it was about another social network. But yes. Yeah.
But I mean, I think everybody accepts that that's what it's all about.
Yeah, I guess everyone now accepts that it's called Facebook.
Yeah. But would you like to talk about some of the case studies that you've come across that have been good examples of how companies can achieve growth, or something that they can learn from, certain important lessons to be learned from looking at case studies?
Yeah, okay. So if we were to look at the case studies I have for my own clients, I think a handful of them that are published to the website, the md9.co website. When you're starting out as a startup, it's best to go niche, because when you go niche for a very small targeted group, if you're offering a solution that they need, they're okay with the fact that you're a young startup that's going to have a few hiccups along the way, because you're giving them a solution that they didn't have access to before.
Okay.
And with the example, I mean, actually, almost every startup I've worked with, I've told them to focus on going niche in the beginning, simply because if you're an 8-time startup founder, you have everything set. You know who exactly to pull in to make it so everything goes off without a hitch. If you're a first-time startup founder, you may think that your black book is fully stacked, but it's rarely stacked with exactly what you need when you need it.
Right.
And it takes a few startups to get there.
Yeah.
So that's why going niche in the beginning, like if you look at the example of the Coastal Living Real Estate Group, that was an idea on paper in 2013, 2014. But by last year, we hit more than 108 million in sales, and that was not even a 5-year-old company when we did that. And what did she do? She went niche, but she outsourced the things that she didn't like, that she liked least. She pulled in, the woman's been in the real estate space for a very long time, so she did have a thick black book. She pulled in who she needed when she needed to give people that luxury experience. And she also, the first 3 what are they called? The first 3 parcels that she sold and listed as being the selling agent on, she did for free to build up her own portfolio of look at what I can do.
Yeah.
And that's why I have that first 3 rule that I don't know if you got a chance to see that.
I can't remember off the top of my head. No, I did skim a few things on your literature on your website, but would you like to explain a bit more about that for the benefit of everyone listening?
I think that's a really good rule of thumb when you're a first-time founder and you're starting out on your own, is to look at getting 3 people from your personal network that you can work with, that you can build up a case study around the work you do with them. And then when you have 3 case studies on your website and testimonials from those people, then you can actually get a lot more done with your marketing efforts. Like, think about the last time you went to a website that had case studies and testimonials, and you immediately had so much more trust for that brand because you saw, okay, they've had a few successful runs that are featured here that I can read through. They've had people who are happy with them, and look at the things they're writing. The people that are writing these testimonials sound how I want to sound in 2 weeks from now. And so once you have that up, you can get so much more out of your marketing.
Right.
But
So, I mean, do you, in terms of what your capabilities are, do you actually provide a website service, web development for companies, or what happens if a company needs a website and, you know, is basically they've got the idea, they've got most of the infrastructure, but they need a website which is going to be optimized and is going to be, you know, obviously search engine friendly and everything. Is that something you do personally?
yeah, so I have 3 different website packages on my company that my company offers. But with them, we don't just do the website, because I feel like that's like giving somebody a fish. You want to give them a supply of fish so that they actually do well and their brand grows. So that's why all of our websites include a monthly conversion rate optimization report, a monthly SEO report, and 1 hour every month with a growth expert from our team. Because for my company, our goal is to grow every business that we work with. It looks really bad for a growth specialized agency if we have a bunch of corpses in our portfolio. So even if we just do a website for somebody, we're giving them consulting. Like it's packaged in with it so that we make sure that they're growing in that first year that they have with us.
Yeah, yeah. And could you kind of, for the benefit of people listening, could you kind of simplify the process of how you go about getting, I mean, obviously you want to get traffic to the website. And you want to get good conversions of that traffic, so that a relatively high proportion of them who look at the website will actually take it a step further. Because, the point I'm making is that there are so many millions of websites out there, and when you search for something on Google, say, and you get a long list. And you look at them and you tend to pick and choose. And if a website doesn't grab you, you might just click off it and look at the next one. A lot of it is to do with visual impact, isn't it? Visual impact of the website. And as you say, a lot of it is to do with trust, whether there are testimonials, whether there's some background, some checkable history there that people can gain a bit of confidence from. So could you just take it, in easy to understand language, what your approach is? Obviously, you make a website for a client, and then what are all the other processes? I mean, you don't have to go into detail of all the details behind it, but just can you summarize a lot of those processes that you will go through in order to make that website a success and make sure that it does get regular traffic and it does get good conversions?
Okay, yeah. So as I mentioned earlier, you want to grow in levels. So grow until the company's at max capacity, and then you hire to be able to allow for larger capacity, and then you grow and get to max capacity again, and you kind of grow in levels, in tiers. You don't want to flood the ship. You want the water to fill in such a way that the ship can rise. So with the marketing websites, if it's a brand new idea on paper, I take them through what I call, I actually have a beta launch process that I take them through.
Right.
So right now I own one company and 4 brand lines. And the main parent company website is where we host all of our beta launches. That has the best SEO juice. So when we have something new that we're working on that we're going to launch soon, if you go to themilliondollarpineapple.com, right now you will just see, hey, we're working on something new, put in your email to get a notification. And as soon as somebody has an idea and we have a name, I want that I want that published to the World Wide Web. Because a lot of search engines, if your website is a day old, 2 days old, 3 days old, it's not going to get a top ranking. It's just not. They're looking to protect their credibility first and foremost. So what they're going to do is look for sites that have been around a little bit longer. So think about having to sit in a timeout for 6 months. That's basically what you should think of when you're launching a new brand. So that's why as soon as they have an idea and we have a domain name, I want to publish. It's a blank. It doesn't matter if it's a blank page that says something new is coming soon. And an email. People can sign up their email. And then when you're talking to friends and family, if they think your idea is cool, they can go drop their email in. So you're already getting your first 10 customers, which is usually one of the most difficult first steps. And then once you have, we have an idea, we have it we have it like a solid plan. We've done our market research. We know what our brand identity is going to be that's going to resonate with the people we want to be our customers. Then you kind of fill in the website, and you have version 2 of the website. And with version 2 of the website, you're going to tell people a little bit more about your value proposition. You can then take that over to platforms like Beta Launch, Beta List, Beta Tester, and you can start to build up a list of people that are interested in your idea if and when it becomes a company.
Mm-hmm.
And then while that is sitting there on those 3 directories or 4 directories, however many you go to, that's when in the behind the scenes, we're actually building out your marketing website. Like, okay, Google and other search engines, they want you to have a contact us page. They want you to have an about us page. They want you to have different trust builders that are included in your website. So that's when we go in and we take those few weeks to write out all of that stuff, to put together your case studies, your testimonials, and then we launch that website when you're ready to, when you have those case studies and you're ready to actually start marketing.
Right. Okay. Well, that sounds good as a first initial step, a kind of a springboard for the company.
Yeah.
But in terms of getting traffic, what techniques do you employ to get traffic? Because, you know, it's all very well just building a list like that, but once you've exhausted, obviously, the initial contacts, you know, that people, their, you know, their circle, their kind of immediate circle of contacts or acquaintances, etc. Where do you go from there to actually really build traffic coming to the website?
All right, so there more than 20 different customer acquisition channels that you can access and unlock to get people coming to your website.
Yeah.
The 4 questions, the 4 growth questions, and the growth framework that I designed are specifically designed to help companies figure out which of those 20 are actually going to be best for their company based on its size, its like capacity, and how they have everything structured right now. And those, like taking that framework, you're able to say, okay, if I were to guess right for a niche blog, that would be great for my brand right now. Mm-hmm. Or, you know what, we're a little bit too big for that. We really do need the big PR. And you kind of need to take into account these 4 growth questions to pick out which solutions are going to be best for driving traffic to your website. Like, for example, if with organic traffic, you have guest right for a niche blog, guest appear on a podcast like this one. You have help a reporter out, where you can sign up to be a source for reporters that are looking for a quote from a professional, and you can sign up to get that notification 3 times a day, Monday through Friday, and get quotes put into places like Wall Street Journal, entrepreneur.com, Forbes.com. You have unconventional PR, where you can partner with a charity. You have content marketing, speaking engagements, and in-person events. If you're looking to have them drive traffic to your website, something that you want to do is buy a short domain somewhere online, like Namecheap. You can buy them for, I don't know, $3 or $4, and you create a landing page specifically for that domain, and then you have that landing page direct people to your main website. And that's how you can improve your search engine rankings, your organic search engine rankings, with an in-person event, like or an in-person piece of marketing material. What else do you have? In terms of getting traffic, referral and affiliate programs are really powerful. I've found, especially in the US right now, after the recession, the prices while prices went back up, salaries did not go back up at the same rate. And so you have this offset where lots of people don't just work a 9-to-5 job anymore. They have an evening job. They have a side hustle. They're freelancing. They're having to do all these different things to keep their standard of living that they had before the recession, when the salary to cost of living ratio was a little bit more balanced. So having some sort of program, like an affiliate program where people can make money promoting your brand, or a referral program where people can have savings on their purchases from your company when they refer their friends. Those are 2 really, really solid ways to get traffic coming to your site, because you have people who are passionate about your product but don't work for your company promoting your brand. Yeah.
And can you give us any particular examples of this then?
In terms of getting
In
traffic
term,
coming to
yeah, in
somebody's
terms
specific
of
website.
using affiliates or other incentive schemes, can obviously based on some of your past experiences with
Yeah.
companies, can you just run through a few examples which are going to help illustrate the point that you're making?
Yeah. Have you heard of Appszoom?
No.
It's it's a kind of like a fire sale website
All
for
right.
startup tools.
Oh, is it?
It's really popular in the US.
Okay.
It's called Appszoom, Appsumo, like
Appszoom.
app and then sumo, like sumo wrestler.
Right. Right.
Yeah. And it's really great if you have like some sort of web app and you're specifically targeting startups.
Okay.
But what they do is you sign a contract, and it's a 1.5, 2 year contract that you have to offer your app as a lifetime deal, so 5 to 10 years, for the life of your product, to all of the users on the AppSumo platform. And then the revenue share might have changed since the last time I used it, but when I used it last, it was 50% of all of the sales went back to your company and 50% went to AppSumo.
All right.
So yeah, it really is a PR type thing. It is not great for your bottom line, because you suddenly have like 20, 30, 40, 50,000 people downloading your app for only $25,
Yeah.
when you want them to be downloading it for a few $100s a month subscription. And then you do have to figure out afterwards, okay, how am I going to get these people to upgrade? But that is one example of where doing a revenue share can drive a lot of traffic to your website.
Okay.
So, but with affiliate and referral programs, I would highly recommend that a startup has somebody who's done them before on their team, because they do bring you a lot of traffic, but they also come with quite a few headaches if you haven't refined your pricing strategy and if you haven't set up your processes to scale. AppSumo deals are one of the places where firsthand I've seen the most hiccups with customer support chat, because young startups are the ones that are willing to sign away lifetime subscriptions for $25. And they rarely have that bandwidth to go and hire a customer success team to help them with customer support and scale on demand like the Amazon Web Servers do. But yeah.
Sure. So that obviously can be a kind of an unforeseen problem for startups that just want to kind of build up the numbers, but they're not looking ahead far enough into the future, are they? That could be a kind of a logistical problem further down the line. So that's good. Well, let's talk about social media and the power of, obviously, social media has just gone from strength to strength, and the power of businesses to be able to leverage social media. What would you like to say about that?
Okay, so I have addiepineapple.com, which is my personal brand.
Okay.
And I had to launch that website because with social media platforms, they're a business. Like, people think, oh, Facebook should have done something about the election. No, Facebook is not a social worker. Facebook is a business that wants to make profit. And with these social media platforms, their business is to get users coming on, and then they sell that user's attention. So they're not going to give, if you were to post something, or if I were to post something to my personal profile, I could get 12, 13,000 views on it, no problem. But if I were to include a link, or if I were to put that same post on my page website, my business page website, I would get 1/10 of that, because they do not want you to have users leaving their platform. And as soon as you put an external link in your post, you're telling them, hey, algorithm, check this out. I'm going to take users whose attention you're selling for premium pricing to marketers, and I'm going to steal it and bring it to another platform. So
Right.
if you let people see my post, they're going to leave your platform.
So
Or
that's,
if it's a business
yep.
page, hey, YouTube, I'm going to show this content to a bunch of people for free on your platform, and no, I'm not paying you for advertising. They're going to say, okay, yeah, your reach is here, and if you're an average person, your reach is here. So you notice now that a lot of people are having to leverage their own brands. Like for me personally, I'm not always the one that's in control of my social media profiles because those need to be used to grow my company. One of my friends, he's at a company that's in 13 countries. He has over 1,000 employees. His social media profiles, I know that I can only contact him through WhatsApp and Telegram, because any other platform that I go to, I'm going to be talking with someone from his social media marketing team. And it's gotten to this point where, because social media platforms their algorithms are not favoring and not allowing businesses to have this organic reach, companies are taking over people's personal profiles, which is kind of crazy.
Right, right. Well, could you just explain that a little bit for the benefit of everyone listening? You said companies are taking over personal profiles. How is that working? Just explain that, will you?
Yeah. So for example, let's say that you were a part of my social media marketing team and I had to go do a speaking engagement. While I'm speaking, I'm not able to respond to, if we have it on LinkedIn Live, I'm not able to respond to all those comments. But LinkedIn's algorithm is going to only give my content further organic reach if I am responding to those comments. But how weird would it be if mid-conversation, I'm like, oh, could you hold on a second? I have to respond to a random person on LinkedIn right now. So obviously I'm going to have someone from my team on LinkedIn responding to the comments as if they're me while this is going live.
Okay, but what occurs to me there is that the people who are currently, they're sitting on the keyboard writing the comment, they must be aware that it's not you who's responding, because they can see, they could be watching you on a TV show or something, so they must be aware.
Okay, so this is kind of an interesting conversation I had with a mentor like last year. He was like, you have to choose if you want your company to grow or if you want to be free to kind of be your personal brand behind the scenes. Like, because I'm an introvert, so I don't like being out in front of things. I don't want a bunch of people going through my social media profiles. I just like to have my own office. Life is calm and quiet, and I like to be the strategist behind the scenes. And he was like, well, you can't have both. Your company won't grow if you don't let go and fit. You have to fit into a persona. You have to deliver work consistently. People are buying a consistent product. They're buying you consistently being there, like doing this, and you have to become two-dimensional, and you have to be okay with other people controlling your profiles. That's just a fact of the matter. It was like, oh, okay. So this is a little daunting. I guess I have to go through and clean up and make everything cohesive, like brand, and I have to get ready to have people that I've recently hired controlling my phone. Great. But that's kind of just the way the game is played, I guess, is the best way to put it. Like,
Right.
I mean, you do message your friends. Like when one of my friends got to one of my friends recently was named CTO of a company, and it's a multinational startup. They've just had explosive growth. And he messaged me like a week before his profiles were taken over. And he was like, hey, the only place you can contact me moving forward is WhatsApp, because if you message me anywhere else, it's going to be somebody from the social media marketing team. It's just like, okay, you've made that transition. Cool.
Yeah.
Congratulations. Yeah. You now have minions controlling your social media platform. Like, you've hit that level. So for some people, it's like a congratulations. For other people, like, it's like, do I really have to do this? Well, yes, if you want to make that jump, you do.
Yeah. I take your point. I mean, obviously, when a company gets so big, there has to be a structure there that can deal with all the inquiries coming in and deal with all the comments and etc. One person cannot do all that. can they? So
Yeah.
so that certainly makes sense. Now, I mean, obviously, with social media these days, companies have a quite a big choice of what social media that they would like to use. I mean, obviously, you know, we've got Twitter, we've got Facebook fan pages, we've got Instagram, we've got Snapchat. Is there any kind of order of priority that you place on this long list of social media that's out there? How
Yeah.
where does a company start if it wants to build its presence on social media, and what priorities would you allocate in terms of building it up?
Okay, so I have a free guide on market research for first-time founders.
Okay.
And in that guide, one of the steps is to go to Pew Research and other places that provide this free data to you. And you want to look at where your target market is.
Okay.
What you should do is view each social media platform as if it's a club in college or in the real world. Like, not everyone wants to be a part of Rotary. Not everyone wants to be a part of Kiwanis. Not everybody is going to really have fun sailing every weekend or fishing or spending time golfing or skiing.
Sure.
And you kind of, so each platform has its own sort of personality and it attracts specific types of people.
Okay.
Like, so right now, for me personally, I found that the people that I want to work with are most active on LinkedIn. So that's where I'm most active.
Yeah.
And then let's say you're targeting stay-at-home moms or creatives, then you should probably be on Pinterest and Etsy and selling your product on Etsy. Or if you need journalists and you need to be getting in touch with journalists on a regular basis, you need to be on Twitter. Okay. If you want, let's see, Medium is another platform that some people love it, some people hate it. There's a lot of controversy around whether or not you should have your own blog or you should be on Medium, because Medium's goal isn't to promote your content. Their goal is to promote content on their platform. Whereas on your own blog, the goal is to have people interlinking to other posts on your platform. But it's really just a matter of figuring out where your people are. Because like you said earlier, you are one person and your time on a daily basis is finite. So you can't be everywhere all at once.
No.
You do have to pick especially when you're starting out and you don't have 10 social media people on your team, you have to pick one platform and be engaging with people on that one platform. So you asked in your email, what are some businesses failing to make the best use of? Why are some businesses failing to make the best use of the tools available to them? And I was saying, honestly, I don't think it's tools. I think it's more of people, like, they should understand algorithms, they should look at frameworks, and they should really invest in time with mentors, because those are the three that I think are most underutilized.
Okay.
By failing startups.
Yeah. What exactly are some of the best methods which can help a small business to grow rapidly, would you say?
In addition to the 4 growth questions that we spoke about earlier that I've dropped into that growth framework, I would say data infrastructure. You really need to develop a solid data infrastructure. Otherwise, you're literally shooting blind. I cannot tell you how many times a founder has approached me and said things like, oh, well, yes, we had a launch party, but I don't know how that impacted our app downloads. Or yes, we sponsored an event, but I don't know if that helped with driving traffic to our website. If you were to go to my website 10 times before you made a purchase, and only after you made the purchase did you log in for me to get credentials, I would be able to, with the data infrastructure that I have set up, I would be able to see all 10 of the different organic pieces of content I have all over the web. I would be able to see which ones brought you in. And then I would be able to say to my marketing team, okay, so we know that that these 10 pieces brought this person in. And we know that these 4 pieces brought this person to make a purchase. So what can we like extract from this to say, okay, these pieces are converting people faster, or are these 10 pieces helping to pull people in who are on the fence about our brand? And you can't even have those conversations if you're not tracking that data. And I'm like, my company isn't even the only one that offers that type of setup. You also have companies like Segment, SharpSpring, and there's a third one, HubSpot, that can offer you that type of rich insight.
Yeah.
And I think having that in place is really what sets up and differentiates the startups that grow rapidly from those that are still trying to figure out whether or not they have product market fit 2 years down the road.
Okay, I can certainly see the importance of what you've touched on there. That you're basically saying that anything that the company does in terms of marketing or publicity or promotion, they want to be able to accurately monitor that and accurately get feedback off of that. And of course, that may not always be easy, especially to someone who is not technically minded in that sphere of information. So could you, Adi, could you explain exactly how it's possible to monitor that? You talk about data infrastructure, but just summarize how is that done, and how does a company, really keep tabs on that, really understand what impact a particular campaign is having, or what impact a particular publicity stunt is having? I mean, how can a company go about monitoring that?
The easiest thing, first off, you want to have the data infrastructure in place. So you have to set up the tracking in your actual marketing website or in your app. And that's done just by tech people, by your web developers, by your app developers. Right. They need to go in and set that up for you.
Sorry, Adi, are we talking about cookies? So the cookies on the website, is it mainly that, or is it other things as well?
Well, cookies are one thing. Cookies are great, actually. Yeah. You can use them for making a really rich user experience. Like, let's say you're a first-time user, and I know that you're a first-time user because you don't have a cookie. I can have an introductory video pop up that tells you about the brand before you even enter the website. All right. But if you come to the website 3 days later, you're not going to get that same video. You're going to go right to the website.
Okay.
So cookies are, they are one way that's kind of allows you to offer a rich experience to your website users. But data infrastructure allows you to track, okay, how far did this person scroll down on this page? Where did they come from exactly? What referring domain brought them in? And then when they're here, which pages did they click to before they left? Did they go all the way through my funnel and make a purchase? Or did they read through a few blog posts and then leave? Are a lot of people leaving after they read a particular blog post or a particular page? Should I look at that page and see, okay, well, why are so many people leaving from this page, but people who are reading this page are making a buy? What can I change about the page that's low converting to match the efficacy of the page that's high converting? But let's say, so going back to the second part of your question, with how can people track something in the physical space? Short URLs are the most underutilized tool right now. Anytime I work on a project where someone has any element of their business that's in the physical space, I'm throwing a short URL on there. It doesn't matter if it's like anthony.xyz. If somebody sees your billboard and they type in anthony.xyz into their search bar, it's going to bring them to a landing page that immediately tells us, okay, you got 300,000 people coming to this landing page because of that billboard. We only put that URL on that billboard.
Right.
And then you have and then you have an ad that runs in a newspaper. We buy another short URL for $5. That's so cheap in comparison to the revenue you're going to make. And we put the ad in the newspaper or the magazine, and we put a new short URL there. People go to a different landing page and then into your main site. So you really have to, QR codes are another way that you can track how things are working. But you can't really use a QR code on a billboard. You could use it on in a newspaper or magazine at events.
Right, right. Yeah. So so obviously these things all have their benefits, and I mean, looking into the future, Addy, what do you see as the major changes which are going to affect, small businesses in terms of technology and the internet? Because things are always changing. What was working a few years ago may not be working today. I mean, one example which I've heard about, which I've read about, is article marketing. Apparently, that was big quite a number of years ago. Article marketing, to actually post articles and then put a link at the bottom to your offer or your website. And then I've heard recently that no longer works. I don't know if it's anything to do with search engines or something like that, but it's, things come and go is what I'm trying to get at. Is that, are there any trends that you've identified which you think are going to have a major impact on businesses in the future, from either changes in the way we operate or the way we do things on the internet? Have you had any thoughts about that?
Yeah, so in regards to what you're saying about article marketing, or the advertorials, I guess is what they're called now.
Right.
With those, what I've noticed is when a marketer says that something's not working, more often than not, it's not working for them because they're either doing it wrong or they haven't listened to what their new target market wants.
Oh, right.
The desires of people do change. So where people used to like to not have a peek under the hood, now you have consumers reading every single ingredient and then Googling those ingredients and figuring out what they want. Okay. So in terms of the content, I believe that content continues to change as the trends continue to change in what consumers look for, what they're interested in learning about. If you look throughout history, we have cycles of people being more spiritual versus people being more logic-based and more scientific. And you have that kind of back and forth of like, this was the era of spiritual religion, and then this is the era of science, and this is an era, and you kind of go back and forth with that. And you notice with our content, we're going back into an age of people being less spiritual and more scientific, because we're in a new, what is it? That's the fourth industrial revolution, where we're now in an era of knowledge again. Okay. 10 years ago, you wouldn't sit at a meeting and have people saying, I want you to Google that fact you just cited. But I walked into a meeting in mid-January where somebody stated a fact during the meeting, and there's 20 people at the table. And the head of the meeting turned to one of the guys who had his computer open, and he said, I want you to Google that. We are not having people throw out fluff here. We're going to, if you state a fact in this meeting that that people are not sure is accurate, we're going to Google it right now. And so thinking about being in that meeting, what type of content are you going to look for? You're going to go online and you're going to look for articles that are going to give you a quick answer. And now you have, with Google, featured snippets. Because when you go to Google that, you can get your quick answer. And if you're not looking for a quick answer and you're looking for more in-depth explanations, then you can scroll down to the actual content pieces that are between 500 and 10,000 words. So if somebody said that advertorials were no longer working, I would ask, well, who's their target market? Where did they put the advertorial? What was the link at the bottom? Did they offer rich information, or did they just try to sell somebody? Because we definitely have reached an age where, with so many things being automated and so many things being done online, human connection trumps everything, because it's no longer the standard. It's now like a rarity. And so if you have a piece of content where you're really telling people, hey, this is where I'm coming from, this is what I've done, and this is how I think that I can help you, and you're being genuine, people are going to buy whatever you're selling because you genuinely believe it'll help them. if you go online, download a template for $1 and it's a sales advertorial template that's like very low quality, and you upload it and you wonder why people aren't buying, well, you were disingenuine. And like being genuine is, I think, one of the most important things right now, especially with content.
Okay. Well, yeah, that is an important point, I suppose, because there's so much out there, and and of course you always have to sift through so much information. You have to, you're forced to reject a lot of it because you simply either don't have time for it, or it doesn't resonate with you, and so people tend to go for the thing that stands out, really stands out for them, which may obviously will be different for different people, obviously. But we react a lot to visuals. So if something looks good or it looks nice, we tend to react more positively. Whereas if something, for example, had too much waffle in it, or too much text and not enough visuals, it might put people off. So a lot of this is common sense, but it's a fact that we process information visually more than we do. A picture paints 1,000 words, basically. So if you can say it with pictures or image, video, you can probably say it much more easily with that than you can by giving people a report to read, can't you? So,
well, I think it depends again on who you're going after. Because I know that there are groups of intellectuals that are speed readers that they hate that everything's going to video. So they're like, I can't speed read a video. But then you have people who just want to they had a rough day at work and they just want to hop on YouTube and relax. And they're going to, if you give them a long form text to read, they're going to glare at you and say, where's the video version of this? So you are, there are some marketers who are out there trying to say that video is the future, and if your pieces of content aren't visual, then you're going to like be lost in the dust. And that's just not accurate. I mean, it's a game of, like, in your interview with Laura Briggs, was it? Like, when she was talking about how it's a game of numbers. Everyone doesn't want the same thing. And if everyone did, we would be in a socialist society worldwide. We would be one nation, one currency, one language. Like, and that's just not the case. Like, you have different groups, and as our population grows, you have more people coming out with different tastes who are attracted to different things. For me personally, video is okay sometimes, but honestly, I'd rather be able to take the document, print it out, and read it sitting in the garden. Like, I don't want to have to spend more time in front of the computer than is necessary. And if I need to read something that's 10,000 words, I want it on paper so I can like go through and write notes so that when I'm back in the office, I can actually implement it. And I think it's, depending on the lifestyle you're in, you're going to want the content digested in a different way.
And of course it depends on people's kind of intellect or education, I suppose, to a certain extent. And as you've said there, some people prefer to read a document and maybe annotate, like you say. So I suppose the best way is to be able to cater for everybody and say, we've got a video here. If you don't want to see the video, read the text underneath.
I mean, you could do that, but why do you, unless you're Google or Apple, like, you don't want to cater to everybody. Some of those people don't want to be your clients. So why would you invest $10,000 into creating this video for them when the people that are going to buy your product don't want a video? Like, that's getting back to, like, that's why I say market research and knowing your consumer, like, inside and out, and what they want is ground one before you even invest a single dollar into marketing. Because unless once you know what your target market wants, then you can create that for them. So, like, if you're one brand and you invest $10,000 into a video, and that's what your target market likes, you may see 300,000, 400,000 back in revenue from investing $10,000 into video production of a micro series. But if you're another brand and you're going after like a more intellectual group that wants to be able to print the documents off, you shouldn't have that many. You shouldn't have, if you're going to have any visuals on the page, they should be graphs, and you should have a printer-friendly button where they can scroll to the bottom, press print, and they can read the document.
Okay.
Or, yeah, I guess it really just comes down to like, who are you trying to sell to?
Yeah. Well, that's...
And then as you're... Yeah.
That is a very important point you've just touched on. And what I'd like to ask you, leading on from there, is how do you go about knowing exactly what your target audience or your target market is? Because I suspect it's not always easy. I mean, there may be times when, you know, the product is a very simple product and you can easily predict who that product is for, but there could also be products out there which are actually, you may be surprised at who the ultimate target market is, that it may be something a little bit unexpected. So what I'm saying is, what techniques do you employ to sort of really hone down the target market and really define that and be able to accurately say exactly what that target market is?
At this point, I think it's sort of just second nature for me to be able to identify, but I have been doing this for 11 years, like professionally, before the decade and a half with my parents. So for me, it's kind of like, hey, teach me how to talk. Like, it's sort of just something that's, if I don't accurately identify and quickly identify like who's in the target market, I'm usually calling up a mentor or like someone else in the startup space and saying, hey, the data is showing me, like, I did the market research, I thought this would be the target market, but I'm getting traction over here, and I redid the market research like with a new lens, looking at it as if that's the target market where I'm getting the traction. Like, what do you think of this? And that's why you asked in our emails, like, what are some of the tools that first-time founders aren't necessarily like leveraging the most? And I think it's mentors and advisors. If you notice, startups that are really crushing it, they have really solid mentors that they're listening to, that they're calling and getting advice from.
Right.
Because as much as somebody older may not know how to code as fast as someone in their 20s who took computer programming classes since middle school, they've been around the block longer, and businesses at their most fundamental human level, they're human consumers, and understanding the human race is best done by people who have been on the planet longer. Just that's what it comes down to.
Sure.
But I'm laughing because, okay, so the one brand I have is 9Apple, and with that brand, what actually it's like a virtual library of all these free guides.
All right.
Initially, I tried to launch it under the brand name 9x90 a year ago in March. And what I did, I got a female founder to come on, do a podcast episode with me. And I thought, this is great. I'm going to create this virtual library for female founders. But the first episode, I had a female founder. After that, I could not get another female founder to come on to do an interview. But I had Harvey Ardman from PBS. He's written like 24 books. And then I had a really esteemed franchise attorney and a few male entrepreneurs and heavy hitters from the startup space that were like, oh, I'd love to come on the show. And so I was like, okay, I guess, yeah, like I have to go through the doors that opened to me. And so I had them come on the show, and I looked at the data, and more than half of my listeners were male. And I was like, okay, I guess my idea of a female founder's like virtual library of resources isn't going to come to fruition because there's no traction here, and I'm literally being pulled in this direction. So I had to redo the market research, redo the brand, and this year I finally was able to launch the virtual library I wanted, which is now under 9apple.co. But now I have this talk show that I didn't really plan on ever existing,
All right.
which is 9x90, that has all these like esteemed managing directors from different startups coming on and talking about how they got to where they are today.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm not alone in that. If you do experience that, I think you're in good company, because the same thing happened with YouTube and Snapchat and Instagram and a few other like really large brands where they thought they were launching for one niche and they had all this traction in another niche and had to rebrand and go where the crowd was.
Yeah,
But
well,
yeah,
you just never know, I suppose.
yeah,
But
you have to listen to the crowd.
yeah,
Go where the door opens.
that again, that makes a lot of sense. Now, I know in one of your interviews, I happen to see, I know you do a lot of reading. You like to do,
Yes.
apparently, you get through at least one book a week, don't you? Well, you mentioned in a previous interview a significant book entitled Blink. Now,
Yes.
could you say something about that book? Because it sounded a bit intriguing. And also, I'd like to hear what other books have been a significant influence in your career or just in your life generally. But if you could start with the one called Blink, what's that? What's the essence of that?
So, Blank is basically a book that talks about how the more experience you have, the faster you can figure out the outcomes.
Okay,
Are you familiar with Farnham Street blog?
I'm afraid I'm not.
No. Okay, it's a like super nerd blog, so it doesn't have a huge reach right now, but they have this one document, and it's called 100 Mental Models. And they kind of take, like, you can take the book Blink and kind of align it with that blog. And in Blink, what they're saying is, for example, like, how do I blink? When I go into a meeting with a startup, I'm going to ask questions that answer and help me to mentally fill in SWOT analysis, pest analysis, Porter's 5 forces within the first 5 minutes. And that's just something that I do intuitively because I've been doing this for so long. Whereas somebody who's new to marketing, they're not going to blink as fast. They're not going to get to that same level of questioning and figure out those same pieces in the puzzle as quickly because they're just learning how to put the puzzle pieces together for the first time.
Okay.
So another example is, let's say you went to the gym and you see Arnold Schwarzenegger there. Okay, you are not going to be able to keep up with him in his workout unless you've been working out as long as he has. If it's your first day in the gym, like, I don't care who your parents are and what your genetic makeup is, you're simply not going to match pace. And the entire premise of the book Blink is basically that if you're a novice, take time to learn from the professionals who have gone before you because they pick up on things so much faster. And like, one of the really cool visualizations that he has in the book is a professional baseball player. And I don't remember exactly which baseball player he featured, but he said the baseball player knew how to hit the ball, even though his eyes, physically, it was not possible for his eyes to see where the ball was because he analyzed the pitcher's stance.
Oh.
And so he was hitting balls that, like, biologically he could not see, or anatomically, like, he could not see that quickly. Like, his eye could not catch something moving at that speed towards him. But because he had been playing for like thousands of hours, the 10,000 rule,
Okay.
because he'd been playing for thousands of hours, he knew based on that pitcher stance where the ball was going to go, and he was able to hit a home run.
Right. Well, that's that's an interesting fact. And it's something. Yeah, it's almost like second nature, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, and it's also there's the same with animals. I mean, I'll tell you one good example. I think is, have you ever seen a flock of birds flying in the sky? And there's one bird who is actually right in front, and all the other birds are doing is just following their neighbour, and you know, coordinating with the next nearest bird. But what happens is that flock of birds will all move together. So the flock keeps its form, and it keeps moving around the sky as a flock.
Yeah.
It doesn't sort of scatter and break up. It's amazing if you ever see that.
Yeah.
And that's to me, that's an example of just the quick reaction, the almost second nature of each bird in that flock, just to be able to react in just a tiny split second and flap its wings in the correct manner to move and keep with the rest of the flock of birds. And I thought that was,
that's I think that's a great visualization for thinking of what it's like to work with somebody who's growing a startup for the first time versus somebody who's done it so many times. Like intuitively, as soon as somebody says like, oh, this is our competitor, intuitively I'm already thinking like, okay, 18 steps ahead, this is what's going to happen if we go with this strategy. We have to go with this instead. But that's why I like the book Blink, because sometimes people will say, oh, I'm fine, I don't need your help, like I have 5 marketing interns. I'm like, please just tell me who your competitor is, because I'd love to work for them. Like marketing, like when you think a novice can keep pace with somebody who's been doing this for 5, 10, 15 years, like, oh my God, I'd love to work for your competitor, because that's just simply not logical. Like in no world is a marketing intern going to be able to make draw the same conclusions and make the same decisions that somebody who's doing this at an intuitive level is going to be able to do.
Yeah.
I suppose it's not a very nice thing to say, but
No, that's fair. Experience does count for a lot, doesn't it?
Yeah.
At the end of the day. That's obvious. Coming back to your reading, as we've said before, you do read a lot of books. Are there any other books which really stand out for you, either personally or in terms of helping you with your career?
Yeah, so, okay, I'll pull 3 off. Okay, so, this one, Atlas Shrugged.
Let's just have a good look at that. I'll just read it out for the benefit of the viewers. It's called Atlas Shrugged, and it's by Ayn Rand. Is that Rand?
Yes.
Rand.
Yeah.
Ayn Rand.
So this book, I love asking people about it, because it doesn't tell you about the book, it tells you about who they are. Because there's so many different characters in the book, and whoever's story they concentrate on tells you about their worldview on life.
Oh, right.
And so it's a book about, like, from my perspective, it's a book about a few innovative people that are trying to change a society that is stuck in certain ways that are counterintuitive and unproductive to future innovation and growth. But if you ask someone else, they're going to tell you that it's a story about, like, I spoke to one person and he was saying it's a story about having to only look out for yourself and having to, like, forget about society and cut yourself off from society. Okay, well, now I know what he's struggling with. Oh. And, like, another person was like, oh, it's a story about this slutty woman and who is sleeping with all these inventors. And it's like, okay, well, now we know what you're doing with your free time. So I think that one, just like as a personal social experiment, is a really interesting book.
Right.
It's quite a thick read as an audiobook. I've read it, and I've also done it as an audiobook. And as an audiobook, it's around 50 hours. Yeah. So you really want to do like a long road trip if you're going to read it. And then another one, do you know Robert Greene?
No. Can I just have a look? I'll read this out for the benefit of anyone listening. It's called The Laws of Human Nature by Robert Greene, with an E. Greene.
Yeah.
And
so he's written quite a few books on like human nature, the laws of power, and a few other, like, all of his books are like a Bible. Like, they're so thick. Yeah. But they really allow you to dive in depth to different subjects. And going back to what we were talking about earlier with, like, mentors and advisors, I recently got to interview this one woman who, she put it best. She said, reading is the cheapest way to spend time with high quality people. And Robert Greene goes through and he reads all of these historical accounts, and then he gives you a synopsis that like supports his argument of like, people are, if they're a narcissist, it's actually because they suffer from a lack of love for themselves. Like they don't have a healthy sentiment about themselves. They don't understand who they are, and that's why they act in this like self-defeating and harmful way towards others. And so in The Laws of Human Nature, he goes through a bunch of different like subjects like that.
Yeah.
And then I'll just give you two more. It's the sports gene.
Right, let me just read this out for everybody. It's called The Sports Gene, Gene, and it's by David Epstein.
Yeah, so this one is really interesting. If you're into like biohacking and figuring out like how to get the best use out of your body based on your genetics, your biological makeup, it's a really interesting book. It talks about like how humans have evolved over time, and how like if your genetic background is based on these, like from these areas of the planet, then you're going to be better and more efficient with these types of things. And so it was a really interesting book I read a few years ago that kind of solidified the, like, I wasn't sure if I was really cut out for the consulting life. I kind of, like when I graduated from business school, Ernst & Young Madrid asked if I'd stay in Madrid. I asked if I could go to New York with them. They said no. And so I went back home, and as soon as I got back home, a company in London called me to come back to do a consulting project, and then a company in Silicon Valley called me to do a consulting project. And so like the doors were only opening there, and I was like, oh, but am I really cut out for this? Like, is this the type, like, is this what I'm set to do? And then I read the book, The Sports Gene, and was like, okay, well, my heritage is Ashkenazi, which basically means that like we tend to be the more logic-based, finding happiness in diving into data and solving solutions actually is like, that would be the best use of leveraging like my genetic makeup. And so that book kind of like helped me to really like solidify myself in the role that I've been like pushed into.
All right.
Because, yeah. And then the last one is Algorithms to Live By.
Right. So this is Algorithms to Live By. And who's the author on that one, Addie?
It's by Brian Christian and Tom Griffiths.
So it's Brian Christian and Tom Griffiths.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And it has different concepts in here, like explore versus exploit, like how many times you should look at options before you get diminishing returns. So if you're trying to hire a secretary, there's actually, you can put it into an Excel and figure out, okay, at what point should you stop doing interviews because the statistical likelihood of you finding a better candidate than one of the previous candidates you interviewed drops off.
Oh.
And it really just helps you if you're looking like, okay, so for me, I have 4 brands, a company, a family, more than 50 subcontractors and freelancers. I have like all of these different things that I have to keep track of and my fingers have to touch on a regular basis. And so looking for the most efficient way to make decisions, like this book kind of just hit that nail on the head. And it helped me to be able to have more confidence in the decisions I made instead of wondering like, oh, should I have interviewed 10 more people?
Yeah,
no.
yeah, right.
Statistical likelihood of you finding a better person is this percentage. Move on.
Okay, so is that centered around probability theory then, mostly?
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's quite a bit of mathematics. Quite a bit of mathematics.
Yeah, it's...
Is it?
Yeah, yeah, a lot of math. If you don't like math and you don't like computer science, you probably will not enjoy that book.
Right.
There is one more. Do you know the Tools of Titans by Tim Ferriss?
Well, I know of Tim Ferriss, who's written.
Okay.
He's actually on the internet a lot, isn't he? He does podcasts and things, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does.
Tell me about that one.
So he wrote this book. I have it cut, so it's in 3 sections.
Yeah.
and it's so thick I cut it into 3 sub-books because it was too heavy for my bag when I was using it. Like, so sometimes I have to go on client project, like on location for clients, and I don't want to bring like a thick book on the flight with me or on my commutes. So I cut it into 3 sub-books.
Right.
So you can't really read the binding anymore.
No,
I'm sorry. But he has 3 sections. It's healthy, wealthy, and wise. Yeah. And with the 3 sections, what I did is each night I would read a profile and then like take notes on what I wanted to apply to my own life from that profile. And then I would, not every night, and then I would make it a habit, like integrate the habit into my like daily routine. And then I would read the next profile. So I guess that one has had like a really rather large impact on who I am now. But,
yeah. Well, this, it's all interesting stuff, Addie, and it's I'm going to have to look into reading a few of those, I think, myself.
Yeah. What are a few of your favorite books?
Well, I'd have to go to my bookshelf and pick a few out. I did study business at school, at college, so I did a degree in business a long time back. But I've sort of dabbled in various things, and I'm kind of interested in mysteries and esoteric things as well. The things that modern science has not been able to solve yet at this point in time. So that's something to me that's fascinating. But it's clear you've done an awful lot of reading and research, and I think it's paid off. I think it's paid off for you. Well, that's I suppose we just about covered it, haven't we? Well, I'll tell you what. Did you want to just let people know I know you've got a few websites. Would you like to just let people know the website if they want to find out more about you or find out more about your business? What's the website people should go to?
If they want to find out more about me personally, it would be addiepineapple.com.
Okay.
Like Addie without the U, and then pineapple like the fruit. Yeah. .com. And that it has the links to all of my other projects and brands that I'm working with there.
All right.
If they're a startup founder that's looking just to get access to some free guides and resources, I think 9apple would be the best place for them to go. That's 9, number 9, and then the word apple, like again the fruit.
Yeah.
.co.
Just .co. Yeah.
And then if they're looking to actually just get professionals to help them with their growth, and they just want to have somebody come in and like take care of it for them, then it's md9.co.
md9.co. Right. That's an intriguing name. MD9. Sounds like a secret agent.
We wanted to go for MVP, but it was already publicly traded company with a trademark, so we couldn't. No. And MD9 was literally looks like a P, but it's the letter version of the P, so that's what we had to go with.
That's where that came from then. Very good, Addie. Well, it's been nice talking to you. And, I hope anyone who's been listening has learned something from that. I know I certainly did find a few interesting things come out of that. And especially those books. I'm going to have to look into some of those titles, I think. So I'd like to say a big thank you to Addie Soozin. And thank you to everyone who's been listening in. And we'll speak to you again. Thank you.
All right. Thanks so much. Take care. Bye.